Will you stay if I rescue you? The water was freezing, the current merciless, and Isabella Chen was drowning, not just in the river, but in the weight of expectations she'd carried her entire life, ***. If you want to hear a story about how a billion-dollar CEO and a widowed single father found redemption in each other's brokenness, stay until the end. This tale will remind you that sometimes the person who saves you isn't who you expect, and sometimes being vulnerable is the bravest thing you can do. Don't forget to hit that like button if you believe in second chances, and subscribe because we bring you real stories about real emotions every single week. Now, let me take you back to where it all began, on a rain-soaked evening in Portland, Oregon, where two worlds collided in the most unexpected way. Isabella Chen stood at the railing of the Morrison Bridge, her designer heels clicking against the wet pavement as rain pelted down from the dark sky. At 34, she was the youngest female CEO of a Fortune 500 tech company, a woman whose face graced magazine covers, whose decisions moved stock markets, whose very name commanded respect in boardrooms across the globe. But right now, none of that mattered. Her phone buzzed incessantly in her Hermes bag, probably her assistant, probably her board members, probably the media wanting a statement about the scandal that had broken just hours ago. Embezzlement. Fraud. Her CFO, her mentor, the man she'd trusted for 7 years, had stolen $40 million and vanished. And somehow, the media was spinning it to make it look like she'd been complicit. Everything she'd built was crumbling. Isabella gripped the railing tighter, her knuckles white. The Willamette River churned below, dark and angry, matching the storm in her chest. She wasn't suicidal, she wanted to be clear about that, but she needed air, needed to feel something other than the suffocating pressure of failure. She leaned forward, just wanting to feel the spray of the water on her face, to ground herself in something real. But the rain had made everything slippery. Her heel caught on the edge of the pavement, and suddenly she was falling, tumbling over the railing with a scream that was swallowed by thunder. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. The river was shockingly cold, like 1,000 knives piercing her skin. Her designer coat became an anchor, dragging her down. She thrashed, tried to swim, but the current was too strong, spinning her like a rag doll. This is it, she thought with strange clarity. This is how Isabella Chen dies. Not in a boardroom victory, but drowning because she wore the wrong shoes, Then she felt hands, strong, sure hands, grabbing her coat, her arm, pulling her upward. She broke the surface, gasping, choking on river water and rain. Through blurred vision, she saw a face, rugged, determined, with eyes that held both fierce concentration and unexpected kindness. "I've got you," the man shouted over the roar of the river. "Stop fighting me and hold on." Some distant, CEO part of her brain wanted to argue, to say she didn't need help, but survival instinct won. She grabbed onto him, and together they fought against the current. He was a powerful swimmer, each stroke deliberate and strong, angling them toward the shore even as the river tried to drag them downstream. It felt like hours but was probably only minutes before they reached the muddy bank. He hauled her onto solid ground, and she collapsed, coughing up water, shivering violently. The man knelt beside her, already pulling off his jacket, soaked as it was, to drape over her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" His voice was deep, tinged with concern. "Can you breathe okay? Did you hit your head?" Isabella managed to shake her head, still coughing. Now that the adrenaline was fading, she became aware of everything, how cold she was, how her whole body ached, how this complete stranger had just risked his life for hers. I'm okay," she managed to rasp. You jumped in after me. "Saw you fall from my car," he said, already pulling out his phone. "I'm calling 911. You need to get checked out." "No." Isabella grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. The last thing she needed was media finding out that Isabella Chen had fallen into a river during the biggest scandal of her career. "No hospitals. No police. Please. I'm fine." He looked at her like she was crazy. "Lady, you just nearly drowned. You need medical attention." "I'm fine." She locked eyes with him, summoning every ounce of the commanding presence that made executives twice her age defer to her judgment. I can't have this become public. Please." He studied her for a long moment, and she studied him back. He was perhaps late 30s, with dark hair plastered to his forehead, strong features, and eyes that seemed to see right through her corporate armor. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt, work boots that had seen better days. Not someone from her world at all. "At least let me get you somewhere warm," he finally said. "I live 10 minutes from here. You can dry off, warm up, and then if you still won't let me take you to a hospital, at least let me call you a cab." Every safety protocol Isabella had ever learned screamed at her to refuse, to call her driver, to handle this through proper channels. But she was so tired of proper channels, so exhausted by the machinery of her life. And something in this man's eyes told her she could trust him. "Okay," she whispered. His name was Marcus Rivera, and he drove a beat-up Toyota that smelled faintly of crayons and fast food. As he cranked up the heat, Isabella noticed the car seat in the back, the scattering of coloring books and small toys. "You have a child," she observed, her teeth still chattering. "Daughter. Emma. She's 7. His voice softened when he said her name. "She's at her grandmother's tonight, thankfully. Otherwise she'd be in the car asking a million questions about why I'm bringing home a drowned stranger." Despite everything, Isabella felt her lips twitch toward a smile. That would be difficult to explain. They drove through quiet residential streets, far from the downtown high-rises where Isabella spent her life. Marcus pulled into the driveway of a modest 2-story house with a small, well-kept yard. Children's chalk drawings decorated the driveway, butterflies and flowers and stick figures holding hands. Inside, the house was warm and lived in. Mismatched furniture, photos on every surface, a blanket fort in the corner of the living room that clearly hadn't been taken down yet. It was the opposite of Isabella's minimalist penthouse, and something about it made her chest ache. "Bathrooms upstairs, first door on the right," Marcus said, already moving toward what she assumed was the bedroom. "I'll find you some dry clothes. They'll be too big, but better than hypothermia." Isabella climbed the stairs, leaving puddles with each step. In the bathroom, decorated with rubber duckies and a step stool by the sink, she caught sight of herself in the mirror and barely recognized the reflection. Her always perfect hair hung in wet tangles, her makeup had run in dark streaks, and her eyes looked hollow and lost. She stripped off the wet clothes, a designer outfit that had cost more than most people's monthly rent, now ruined. As she stood there in her underwear, shivering, there was a soft knock at the door. "I'm leaving clothes outside the door," Marcus called. "There's towels in the cabinet. Take your time." Isabella found the clothes, gray sweatpants with a drawstring, a university hoodie that had clearly been washed 100 times until it was perfectly soft, thick wool socks. She dried off and dressed, and even though everything hung loosely on her smaller frame, she felt warmer than she had in hours. When she came downstairs, Marcus had changed too and was in the kitchen, making tea. He'd also started a fire in the fireplace. He looked up as she entered, and something flickered across his face, not attraction exactly, but recognition. Like he was seeing a real person instead of the drowned stranger he'd pulled from the river. "Chamomile okay?" he asked, holding up a mug. "It's what I give Emma when she's had a bad day. It's perfect." Isabella accepted the mug, wrapping her hands around it. "Thank you. For everything. I don't know how to." "You don't have to thank me." Marcus settled into the armchair across from her, his own mug in hand. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Isabella said quietly. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have called 911 and waited. You jumped into a freezing river in a storm." He shrugged, looking uncomfortable with the praise. couldn't just watch someone drown. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sounds the crackling of the fire and the rain against the windows. Isabella felt something unfamiliar settling over her, peace, maybe, or at least a temporary reprieve from the chaos of her life. "I'm Isabella, by the way," she said finally. "Isabella Chen." If he recognized the name, he didn't show it. "Marcus Rivera." "Nice to meet you, Isabella. Though I wish it were under better circumstances." "You really don't know who I am?" She couldn't help but ask. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Should I?" And Isabella laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in weeks. "No. No, it's refreshing actually. Well, I'm a general contractor, not exactly running in high society circles," Marcus said with a self-deprecating smile. "I spend my days fixing broken things and my evenings helping with homework and watching Disney movies. The news I get is mostly from Emma telling me about what happened at school." "That sounds..." Isabella paused, surprised by what she was about to say. "That sounds wonderful." Marcus's expression softened but also saddened. "It is. Though it wasn't always just the two of us. My wife, Sophia, passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. I'm so sorry." The words felt inadequate, but Isabella meant them deeply. "Thank you." Marcus stared into his mug. "It's been hard. On both of us. But you learn to keep going, you know? For the people who need you." Isabella thought about her own life. No children, no spouse, no one who really needed her beyond what she could do for their profit margins. "I don't think anyone has ever needed me. Not really. They need what I can provide, what I can accomplish, but not me. I find that hard to believe. It's true." And suddenly, maybe because she'd almost died, maybe because this stranger had literally pulled her from drowning, maybe because she was wearing borrowed clothes in a stranger's living room and none of her normal defenses seemed to work, suddenly Isabella was talking. Really talking. She told him about building her company from nothing, about the 90-hour work weeks, about sacrificing relationships and friendships and any semblance of normal life. About how she'd thought she was building something meaningful, something that mattered, only to have it threatened by someone else's greed. About how the whole world seemed ready to watch her fall. Marcus listened without interrupting, without judging, just listened in a way that Isabella realized no one had listened to her in years. "So that's why you were on the bridge," he said when she finally fell silent. "You weren't trying to." "No," Isabella said firmly. "I wasn't. I just needed air, needed to clear my head. The fall was an accident. A stupid accident because I was wearing ridiculous shoes in the rain. Not stupid. Human." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Isabella, I don't know anything about corporate America or billion-dollar companies, but I know about building things. And I know that sometimes things break, through no fault of the builder. Sometimes the materials are faulty, sometimes there's a storm you couldn't predict, sometimes someone sabotages the foundation. But that doesn't mean the builder failed. It means they have a chance to rebuild stronger." Something in his words cracked through the ice that had formed around Isabella's heart. Her eyes burned with tears she'd been holding back for weeks. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "I don't know if I have the strength to fight this." "You have the strength to build a Fortune 500 company before you were 35, Marcus said gently. "You have the strength to survive a river that would have killed someone else. You have more strength than you realize. You're just tired." The tears spilled over, and Isabella didn't try to stop them. She cried for her ruined company, for her shattered reputation, for the loneliness that had been her constant companion for so long, for the life she'd never let herself live because she was too busy proving herself. And Marcus, this stranger who'd pulled her from drowning, didn't look away or offer meaningless platitudes. He just handed her tissues and stayed present with her pain. Isabella woke up on Marcus's couch under a thick quilt, momentarily disoriented. Pale morning light filtered through the curtains, and she could hear movement in the kitchen, the clatter of dishes, the smell of coffee brewing. She sat up, her body aching in a dozen places. The events of the previous night came flooding back, and she instinctively reached for her phone. Dead, of course. She'd left it in her bag, which was, actually, she wasn't sure where her bag was. Probably at the bottom of the Willamette River. Good morning. Marcus appeared with 2 mugs of coffee. He'd clearly been up for a while, showered, dressed in clean jeans and a t-shirt, looking unfairly put together. How do you feel? Like I got into a fight with a river and lost, Isabella admitted, accepting the coffee gratefully. What time is it? 7:30. I called into work, told them I'd be late. Figured you might need. He trailed off, looking uncertain for the first time. A phone charger? A ride? A miracle? Isabella supplied wryly. Marcus smiled. I was going to say breakfast, but those other things too. Your phone's charging in the kitchen. I fished your bag out before we left the riverbank last night. Didn't go through it, he added quickly. Just wanted to make sure you had it. Thank you. Isabella was touched by the thoughtfulness, the respect for her privacy even when she'd been in no state to notice. Marcus, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me. He settled into the armchair, giving her his full attention. Okay. Why did you help me? Really? It wasn't just about someone drowning. You've gone above and beyond, bringing me here, letting me stay, listening to me fall apart. You have a daughter to think about, a life to live. Why risk everything for a stranger? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming against his coffee mug. Can I tell you something? About the night Sophia died? Isabella nodded. It was late. We were at the hospital. The doctors had done everything they could, but the cancer was too aggressive, too far gone. They told me it was a matter of hours. His voice was steady, but Isabella could hear the old grief beneath it. I was sitting beside her bed, holding her hand, and I was so angry. Angry at the world, at fate, at God if he existed. And I asked her, how am I supposed to do this alone? How am I supposed to raise Emma without you? He paused, his eyes distant with memory. And Sophia, even though she could barely speak, she squeezed my hand and said, you won't be alone. Someone will help you when you need it most. That's how the world works, we save each other. I thought she was delirious from the pain medication. But then, after she passed, people showed up. Neighbors brought food. My mother-in-law moved closer to help with Emma. My crew at work covered for me when I couldn't function. Complete strangers at the grocery store would smile at Emma when she was having a meltdown and I was at my wit's end. All these tiny acts of grace. He met Isabella's eyes directly. So when I saw you fall last night, I didn't think about the risk or the cold water or what it would cost me. I thought about Sophia's words. Someone will help you when you need it most. Maybe I was supposed to be on that bridge at that exact moment. Maybe you needed saving, and I needed to be reminded that I can still be useful, still make a difference. Isabella felt tears threatening again. You made more than a difference. You saved my life. And you reminded me why life's worth saving, Marcus said softly. Watching you talk last night, seeing someone else struggling under the weight of the world, it reminded me that everyone's fighting battles we can't see. Emma and I, we're not the only ones dealing with hard things. It gave me perspective. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking their coffee as the morning light grew stronger. Isabella felt something shifting inside her, like tectonic plates rearranging after an earthquake. The panic and despair of yesterday hadn't disappeared, but they felt more scared. It's nothing bad. At least, I hope you won't think it's bad. He paused, gathering his thoughts. These past 6 months with you have been the happiest I've had since before Sarah got sick. You've brought joy back into my life, into our lives. Lily adores you. I adore her too, Emma said softly. And you? Michael smiled. I know we agree. Michael smiled. I know we agreed to take things slowly, and I meant every word of that. But sometimes life surprises us with something so right that waiting feels unnecessary. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, placing it gently on the table. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Emma, he continued softly, you once said you weren't fit for any man. But the truth is, you've been exactly what Lily and I didn't even realize we were missing. You didn't just walk into our lives, you made them warmer, brighter, and fuller. He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Michael said. I'm just asking you to keep being exactly who you are, with us. Emma Matthews, will you marry me? Tears streamed down Emma's face as she covered her mouth in disbelief. For years she had believed she was broken, unworthy of love, unfit to build a family. Yet here was a man who saw her not for what she lacked, but for everything she was. Yes, she whispered through her tears. Yes, Michael. I will. At that moment, a small voice suddenly spoke from behind them. I knew it. Emma turned to see Lily standing a few steps away, grinning from ear to ear. Michael laughed sheepishly. She insisted on coming, he admitted. She said she didn't want to miss the most important moment. Lily rushed forward and wrapped her arms around Emma. Does this mean you're really going to be part of our family now? Emma knelt down and hugged her tightly, her heart fuller than she ever thought possible. Yes, she said softly. If you'll have me. Lily beamed. We already do. As Michael wrapped his arms around both of them, Emma realized something she had never believed before. The cruel words from her past no longer defined her. She wasn't unfit. She wasn't broken. She was loved. And sometimes, all it takes is one person who truly sees you, to remind you of your worth.